Imagine living in a country where money is practically worthless, where a whole month's salary doesn't even pay for a basic food basket, and where even pieces of gold are used as if they were currency. This place exists, and it's right next door in Venezuela. In a previous video, I showed that Venezuela once had the strongest currency in Latin America, was home to the largest oil reserves on the planet, and today its bolivar has completely lost its value. How did a nation that seemed to have everything to prosper end up exchanging its own money for dollars, and in some cases even for gold? How do people manage to live there? Is there government assistance, or are they left on their own? That's what you will find out in today's video. So stay with me until the end, and welcome to 24 Hours in Venezuela, where the currency has let go and surviving has become a challenge. To understand what it's like to live in Venezuela today, we need to talk about money. The bolivar, which is the country's official currency, has practically lost its value. This happened mainly because of hyperinflation. Prices started to rise so absurdly that in a short time, people's salaries couldn't buy almost anything. It was as if the money evaporated in your hand. Because of this, many people and even businesses began to use the US dollar. And today, a large part of transactions in the country happens in dollars, whether at the supermarket, in restaurants, or even in street markets. This brought a certain stability to prices, but also created a huge problem: inequality. Those who receive dollars, either because they work with something related to abroad, or even because they have relatives who send money from outside, can live much better, can buy quality food, go to restaurants, and even consume imported products. But those who only receive bolivares, like most public employees, remain trapped in poverty because their salary barely covers the basics. The government, of course, didn't just sit back. They tried several maneuvers to hold the bolivar. They changed the currency's name, cut zeros, created new versions of it, imposed exchange controls. But it seems that none of this truly solved the problem. In the end, the dollar ended up becoming Venezuela's real currency, even if it isn't officially. In some more remote places, especially in the countryside, the situation got so bad that even gold points began to be used as payment. Small pieces of gold that circulate as if they were coins. Because unlike the bolivar, they maintain their value. It's as if we have gone back centuries with people trading pieces of precious metal for food or services. And here's the question: if the bolivar is worthless, if the dollar doesn't reach everyone, and in some places even gold circulates, how do people manage to survive day to day? The answer is with creativity and a lot of adaptation. The informal economy has become the backbone of the country. On the streets, it's common to see people selling all sorts of things: homemade food, clothes brought from Colombia, imported products that arrive through parallel channels. Often these sales happen in dollars, and this is where many people manage to make a living. Another fundamental pillar is international remittances, the sending of money from abroad. Millions of Venezuelans have emigrated in recent years, and a good part of the families that stayed behind depend on money sent by relatives who are in countries like Colombia, Brazil, Peru, or even the United States. This money converted into dollars is literally the difference between being in need and being able to live with a minimum of dignity. But it doesn't stop there. Many people have also found online alternatives. There are young people working as freelancers, offering design, programming, digital marketing services. Even cryptocurrencies have come into play as a way to escape government control and earn income in a stronger currency. In more rural areas, survival takes a different form. In those places, those without access to dollars or the internet end up relying on subsistence farming, that is, planting their own food, bartering products with neighbors, and living with as little money as possible. It's a way of life that wasn't so common before, but has grown again with the crisis. In the end, Venezuela today is a portrait of improvisation. Each family finds a different way to get by, and often it's the sum of these small solutions that ensures survival. Government benefits and support.
Mas claro,
But of
nem
course,
tudo vem só
not
da luta
everything
dessas
comes from the
pessoas.
struggle of these
O
people.
governo também
The
se
government
esforçou
also made a bit of an
e
effort
criou
and created
mecanismos para
mechanisms
tentar
to try
aliviar
to
a
ease the
situação,
situation,
pelo menos no
at
papel,
least on
né?
paper,
Dos
right?
mais conhecidos é o
One of the
programa
best
CLAP,
known is the
que
CLAP
distribui
program,
caixas de
which
alimentos
distributes
subsidiados
boxes
para as
of subsidized
famílias.
food to families.
Geralmente vem
Usually
arroz,
they contain
óleo,
rice, oil,
farinha,
flour,
macarrão
pasta,
e até
and even
alguns
some canned
enlatados.
goods.
Parece uma
It
ajuda bem
seems like a big
grande,
help,
mas na
but in
prática essas
practice,
caixas
these
chegam
boxes
de
arrive
forma
very
muito irregular
irregularly
e
and do
não
not
cobrem
cover
todas
all
as
needs.
necessidades. Muitas
Often,
vezes, o
what
que
should be
deveria ser
support
um
against
apoio
hunger
contra a
ends up
fome
becoming a
acaba
political
se
tool,
tornando uma
as
ferramenta
those closer to
política,
the government
já
tend to
que
receive
quem
it
está mais
first or
próximo
more
do governo
frequently.
costuma receber
Additionally,
primeiro ou com mais
there are state
frequência.
aids and
Além
salaries,
disso, existem
which are
os
paid to
auxílios e
millions of
salários
public employees.
estatais, que são pagos
The
a
problem
milhões de
is that these
funcionários
amounts are very
públicos.
low, and when you convert them to dollars, sometimes they amount to just a few dollars a month. It's enough to keep people dependent, but not enough to offer a dignified life. And here's a key point.
Quem
Those who
realmente
really
se
benefit
beneficia da
consistently,
forma
who really
consistente,
benefit from
quem
this,
realmente se
are the people
beneficia
connected
disso
to the government,
são as pessoas
to
ligadas
power.
ao governo, ao
Military
poder,
personnel,
militares,
high-ranking
funcionários do alto
officials,
escalão,
people close to the
pessoas
president.
próximas ao presidente.
These have access to
Esses
better
têm
salaries,
acesso a salários
privileges,
melhores,
and often
privilégios,
opportunities that
e
most of the
muitas vezes
population will never
oportunidades
have.
que a maioria da população.
In other words, there is indeed a system of benefits, but it does not reach everyone equally. For the majority, it is just a small aid to avoid total despair. And for a minority, it is the mechanism that ensures comfort and power, even amid so much crisis. Social inequality. And it is precisely here that we begin to see one of Venezuela's greatest contradictions: social inequality. While the majority of the population relies on basic government programs or even selling something to survive, there exists a kind of wealth bubble within the country. Those with access to dollars live in a completely different reality. They frequent packed restaurants in Caracas, go to malls full of stores with imported products, and manage to maintain a standard of living that, from the outside, doesn't even seem like it's from a country in crisis. But this is just a small segment of society. The real Venezuela appears when we look at the rest of the population. Millions of people struggling daily to secure the most basic necessities, like food, medicine, and transportation. While some can even buy luxury items, others have to rely on help from neighbors or the government's food box to get by. This inequality also has a very clear geographical difference. In Caracas, the capital, where more dollars circulate and there are private businesses, you can even find this illusion of normality. But in the country's interior, the reality is much harsher. Less access to services, more instability, fewer life opportunities, and in many cases, an almost total dependence on agriculture or external aid. It's as if there are two Venezuelas at the same time. One that survives, has to improvise and resist all this, and another that remains inside this bubble, continuing to live almost as if the crisis hasn't reached there. This division between realities becomes much more evident when we look at basic services. Because there, it doesn't matter if you have dollars or not, everyone ends up suffering from the same problems. Electricity, for example, is still very unstable in several regions. Blackouts are quite frequent, especially outside the capital, affecting everything from commerce to the simplest things, like keeping food refrigerated. The internet also suffers from constant outages and very low speeds, which severely limits those trying to work online. In healthcare, the situation is also very critical. Many hospitals operate without adequate equipment, there's a shortage of medicines, and some professionals are overwhelmed since salaries are so low that many doctors and nurses have left the country. Those with dollars can pay for private clinics or import medications, but the majority have to make do with what's available in the public system, and this can sometimes mean having no access to treatment at all. Education has also been greatly affected. Teachers receive such low salaries that they often abandon the profession in search of other means of sustenance. Public schools also suffer from a lack of infrastructure, while private ones, which are paid in dollars, are limited to a minority. And of course, we can't ignore the issue of safety. Crime remains a major challenge, especially in poorer areas where the presence of the state is practically non-existent. Many people live in fear of going out at night, or rely on organized communities for protection. In other words, even with the bubble of wealth that exists in Caracas, Venezuela as a whole still faces significant challenges in ensuring what should be basic necessities: energy, education, personal security, health, and it's in this scenario that people need to find ways to survive, day by day. And Venezuelans have been remarkably resilient, man. Many Venezuelans, despite all the hardships, keep their sense of humor. They maintain music and culture as part of their daily lives. So it's common to see popular festivals, performances, and even memes circulating on social media as a way to try to lighten reality. And perhaps the most impressive thing is the creativity to invent solutions, from turning a small backyard into a garden to creating improvised businesses with whatever is available. Behind all this misfortune and massive inflation, there is a people who resist, who reinvent themselves, and who somehow still find reasons to smile. But this resilience of the people also has a very sad side. Many people simply couldn't stay any longer. The crisis forced millions to leave the country, and this completely changed the social life in Venezuela. Today, practically every Venezuelan has a family member living abroad, whether in Colombia, Brazil, Peru, Chile, or even in far-off countries like the United States or in Europe. This mass movement has had a huge impact within the country itself. Some cities have seen a reduced population, especially in rural areas, because young people left in search of a better life. Even local commerce has been weakened because of this. At the same time, the money coming from abroad has become one of the pillars of the domestic economy. For them, sending money has become the main source of livelihood for millions of families. Often, these dollars sent from abroad are what ensure food on the table, access to medicine, and even some chance of having a less strained life. And to close this video, I wanted to talk about something else as well. We can't ignore the recent political conflicts, especially the clashes between Nicolas Maduro and Donald Trump now in 2025. With Trump back in the presidency of the United States, tensions between the two countries have started to rise again. And all of this makes the situation even more complicated for Venezuelans, who are already dealing with the crisis within the country, which is already very bad. In August 2025, the American government increased the bounty for Maduro's capture to $50 million, accusing him of leading a drug trafficking and corruption scheme. This reward, offered by the United States Department of Defense, is part of a broader strategy to pressure the regime. Maduro, of course, denies all this and tries to reinforce the narrative that the United States wants to invade Venezuela, which further frightens ordinary people who fear a conflict. Now, what do Venezuelans think about this? Many of them, especially those I've met, desperately wanted change. After the 2024 election, which was widely considered rigged by Maduro, there were many protests that were suppressed in the country. Many people were arrested. Very bad things happened to several people, and a large part of the population supports the opposition and calls for free elections. All this is putting the country in a very complicated situation. In the end, ordinary Venezuelans are the ones who suffer the most, caught between an authoritarian government and external pressures that do not always consider the population's well-being. It is a very difficult situation to resolve, and it seems that any change will come at a very high cost, but the people continue to hope for a better future. Comment below what you think about all this. Leave your words of hope and faith for the Venezuelan people. Thank you very much for watching until now, and I'll see you in this other video here that's appearing on your screen.